Hello and welcome to the Aedifico podcast. I'm excited to welcome Mandy Wedin from Feroce. Today we're going to talk about what it's like to leave big companies and start your own and all the great things that Mandy's working on. So welcome, Mandy. Happy you're here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right, so let's get started. So you decided to kind of leave big organizations to start your own in commercial real estate and to help companies sort of manage disruption. So tell us more about that.
Sure, the origin stories. So I started Feroce Real Estate Advisors right into COVID as a reaction to what was happening across the different companies, operators, developers, investment managers that I had relationships with and networks were in my network. We were in the early days of COVID, we were on the phone with each other, sharing best practices, answering questions, finding resources for if we can't charge rent to an office tenant, if we can't let an office tenant into a space, can we charge them rent? And what do we tell our investors? And how do we handle our on-site teams and their safety and all these different things? How do we continue construction to meet lease deadlines, all these things? And a friend said, what you're doing is called consulting, go get paid for it. So I said, okay,
Yes.
I'll take that note and go get
Good
it done.
friend, right?
Yeah, exactly. We all need
Yeah.
those. And where my business has grown and evolved into is, as you noted, like addressing the disruption. It can be an elephant in the room or it could be the pot of gold on the table. And I frame it as this is an opportunity to leverage the change that is happening in our industry, in our economy, and use that to build value, to create value instead of avoiding or hunkering down or sticking our head in the sand. Let's find ways to engage with it, use it as a value creation tool.
And the thing is, I mean, it's kind of like since COVID, it hasn't stopped, right? Like the external forces that are constantly causing change, like every day. So I mean, now, like, I guess, how has that evolved and changed for you, like the way that you're consulting with different companies based on the sort of the problem of the day for everyone?
Sure. You're right. It has sped up since COVID, and that pace has continued, has maintained. Before COVID, we were seeing the way that from an office asset class perspective, how people used office and what they needed from an office space was changing. Retail had been disrupted already, gone through its own evolution with the internet economy. Housing had changed, multifamily housing had changed, and then COVID sped that up. And now we have other forces that are maintaining that speed of change. And so a lot of the work that I do with clients, I'm privileged to help them identify the growth trajectories, the actual paths to achieving growth and executing on that in the middle of this change. And some of the things are new, right? I would argue to the commercial real estate industry, the application of AI tools to our work processes, that's new. Yes, I know that some organizations were doing that and have been doing that for a number of years. It was not a common theme. It's still not a common theme of actually application of the tools in real estate, but now it's a common discussion point and figuring it out. I would say that the workforce cliff on the facilities and engineers and building operations teams that existed before COVID accelerated it, and now we're just closer to that edge of that cliff. So those are the pressures. Maybe the pressure is changing, but it's been a known quantity all along.
Tell us more about the cliff.
Sure. So we see this in a number of businesses in our economy, but in the real estate world, for me, how it shows up is when an investor or an investment manager owns a building and they then hire third-party firms to manage it and operate it. We also hire on-site building engineers or engineers that cover multiple buildings. And that population of workers today are nearing retirement. And with them, when they retire, will go all that knowledge about how that building operates.
Right.
The flip is how buildings operate have changed a lot in 10 years for new buildings or buildings that have been renovated, or if we want to achieve more efficiency in our operations. So there's an opportunity to bring in the new expertise and skill set and pair that with the existing expertise that maybe is more on the mechanical side so that we can have a good overlap. But I mean, most of the baby boomers in the US, all of the baby boomers in the US turn 55 by the end of this decade. So that's the sort of macro demographic, and then how that affects certain parts of our business, how we actually operate these buildings. We're feeling that now with that workforce cliff.
And that's probably just one of the many things that you sort of describe as having a frontier mentality. So tell us more about that.
Sure. So this is how I describe why I make decisions the way I do. Give credit to growing up in Alaska, where you have a more success, more comfort, love Alaska. For me, if I approach it with a frontier mentality, recognizing that the weather can kill you, animals can kill you, not being prepared can kill you, and I'm not exaggerating when I say kill you. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but like being caught in a bad storm, a snowstorm,
sure,
if you're not prepared, is super dangerous. So recognizing that, how do we prepare for even the outside chance of snow in May? An actual storm that, catches you on the side of the road. So it's about preparation and scenario planning. It's about thinking through, do I have the tools? And those are resources, right? In team tool perspective, do I have the expertise? Do I have access to this expertise? And do I know the questions to ask to get an answer when I'm evaluating an opportunity for an investment or for an actual building or applying technology to a building? I bring that same lens of wondering, okay, what could go right, what could go wrong, and how do we prepare for both and have different scenarios so we can still meet the end result, the outcome, whatever the goal is that we've defined.
Yeah, I love that. So when you say, or when the answer to the question, do I know what questions to ask, is no, what's your process for finding the questions? That's huge.
Old school, get on the phone and ask other people, like, how are you addressing this?
Yeah.
Google, right? And now you ask a ChatGPT or an LLM, like, what are the risks I should be thinking about? Who is writing about this? Who is asking about this? Who is selling a service about this? It's okay to not know the answer to a question. It's actually really appropriate when you're growing or trying new things or expanding in a new area. You don't need to know the answer to the question. You need to know how to get to it and trust or build trust and confidence in the inputs and the information so that you can make an informed decision. So you talk to other people in your space. And then in real estate, I really encourage us to go talk to other people in adjacent industries, adjacent space, that maybe they don't have the same exact business problem because it's not a building. Maybe it's a different type of asset or a different team structure, but their inputs, the problems or the questions are the same, and they needed to solve it to get to an outcome. So understand what the inputs are, what's forcing the change, and then what was your outcome? Like, did you want more productivity? Did you want to lease more space? Did you need a better result for X, Y, and Z? And everything in between, you apply your real estate knowledge to.
Mm-hmm. What are some of those like verticals or similar? I think you're coming at that with the lens of finance, it sounds like.
That's probably true. Finance and maybe building operations, right? Like the investment operations, like how do we build a better product?
Okay.
So both if we're just building a building, if we're building the whole building, or if we're remodeling a lobby, or if we're deciding what the amenity space is in apartment building or in an office building, like how do we determine what amenity will return the best financial outcome and the happiest customers, right? So go ask other companies that provide consumer products. Like, how do you learn this from your customers? And then how do you build it so that they'll use it? Things like that.
Yeah, I love that. As the founder of a startup, so I've always been a solopreneur, right? As I've been in this industry, I've worked for another company for maybe like 6 months. I very, very clearly proved to myself that I am not an employee, but I also haven't had a team. So it's very new for me to be leading people. And through a startup where today, later, I have to have a conversation with the individual that I hired to onboard enterprise about if he can put on his marketing hat and do some marketing, and he's a former actor, so I think we're going to be fine, and asking him to be the kind of podcast producer. I think he's going to do a great job, and it's going to be fun and something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a little trepidation for me because I that's not why he came on the team, right? But as we have to shift and as things change and the way we use our time wisely changes, it's kind of like, well, this is what it is, right? But I'm so dedicated to sticking to that conversation I had 3 months ago that it's hard for me. So I appreciate your process, as a startup founder. Those are really wise words.
Good. Well, I'm sure your conversation will go well because you've already put some good thought into it, and you're thoughtful
Definitely.
about how
And
it's
and
communicated.
Excel spreadsheets and all the he'll get everything he needs, so we should be good to go. But okay, so as you know, I'm in Seattle, so my network, I'm expanding, but feeling you come this way, like into Seattle, help us understand what Wash REIT and ASB are, and then tell us about that experience there, and then how that kind of has informed your current work.
Sure. Well, I am a huge fan of Seattle, lived there. That's where I started my real estate career, was in Seattle with a firm called Kennedy Associates Real Estate Counsel, which is now, after mergers and acquisitions, a series, Bentall Green Oak, BGO. So
Okay. All right.
I have a
See their name
a
around.
strong pull to Seattle. And in all of my first experience with Kennedy and then with ASB Real Estate Investments, I had a national real estate investment role and a team leader role, and got to work in all the major markets in the U.S. And then at Wash REIT, which is now known as Elm, they are a publicly traded company. Wash REIT owned multiple asset classes in just this D.C., Maryland, Virginia market. And one of my mandates was to build a team and position the real estate so we could extract value through the sale of the commercial, the office, and the retail product and the R&D. So we could then invest that in multifamily and allow the company to transition to a multifamily REIT in multiple markets. So a couple of my leadership experiences that came out of that, both at Kennedy and at ASB, where I learned, absorbed so much. I was really fortunate to work with people and teams who identified change as an opportunity to create value. And that change could be moving to a new market, expanding into a new market because we understood the market fundamentals and we saw this investment could make sense here, or taking an existing asset and converting it to some different use or a better version of what it is. It wasn't buying existing stabilized assets. It was taking something and executing to deliver a better return or a better result. So that was always my frame of reference in real estate, sort of growing up in it, was how do we take this thing that in 10 years, it won't be successful if it stays static, which real estate does in some cases stay really static.
Sure.
What could it be and how can we execute? Why should we buy it on behalf of our clients and go execute? And so I loved that approach. And our teams were set up, particularly at ASB, we were set up to have a collaborative discussion about the pros and cons, the risks and rewards, so that we had a really robust discussion about, can we do this? Should we do this? Is this the asset? Is this the market? And there was a very intentional space for everybody to give their input and to process. Everybody heard that and processed it. And then when a decision was made, whether it was your recommendation or not, if it followed your recommendation or not, you knew that you were heard, and that the decision was best for the client. And so I take that philosophy with me we need to hear from as many people as possible within our team and stakeholders so that we can understand with a wider view what the actual opportunities and challenges are. We need to have that communication, listen to them, and then that makes a better informed decision. And we can go execute or say, this is not the deal for us, we're going to go do this one. And then your team's on board with you and you can do it again, right? And you get better at that and you're You essentially hit the flywheel where you go faster with the same amount of input, same amount of energy. And then you can just learn and execute.
So good. Do you consult with cities?
I have not had that opportunity yet, but I would love it.
I'm just thinking, I actually don't live in Seattle. I live in Tacoma. And since you lived here, you're familiar with it. And, over the years, been very involved in different economic development conversations and task forces and all the things. And I think it would be an interesting, conversation for you to come in and consult with the city and take a look at all the real estate and then, do the 10-year sort of observation. I mean, the hard part is that would be amazing, but then it would just go into a notebook and sit on a shelf, which is the unfortunate part because,
right.
It's much more fulfilling, I would imagine, to do it on the private side because you get to see the end result. It's not just the study. And that is the problem, herein lies the problem with the city, right? But, it still would be a fun, I would love to participate in something like that. I think it'd be awesome. Don't know, what is ESGR?
Sure. So it's an acronym for environmental, social, governance, and resilience. I add the R for resilience because that's an important piece of the framework for me. And I understand and use and apply an ESGR framework as a lens that we use to evaluate the risk and rewards for an investment so that it's a risk framework. Always want to use it as a risk meaning stop, but it's a risk framework. Are we asking questions that help us make informed decisions about the risk and corresponding reward for this investment? So it's applied at an asset level, at a capital improvement, capital expense level. It's applied at a portfolio in the real estate world, at a portfolio, at a fund, at a whole investor. So you understand what your risks are and you can put a plan in place to mitigate them. And you've identified your opportunities and you put a plan in place to go execute and create that value or that new business line or whatever it is that you see. And in the last 12 months, but definitely last 6 months, right? I work really hard not to use acronyms because they are trigger words for a lot of
It's so true.
Our conversations today. So I'll say many times, if ESGR is a trigger for you, we use the word sustainability or responsible investing. Those two things have their own, can have their own separate definitions in the investment world, but for me, I'm using it in the frame of how are we identifying what our risks and our opportunities are to then go execute on it. And I think that's one thing that I stand on my soapbox and say regularly is ESGR, environmental, social, governance, and resilience, is not just filling out a piece of paper to identify that you've done it and then you file it. It is, what have I learned from this? And then how can we go execute on it? Go build a new business. Go make some investments at the asset, some capital expenses at the asset level that allow us to charge a higher rent or lease our building faster or reduce our expenses. It's about what you do with the information once you've done the analysis. So don't stop at just we did the analysis and now we're, moving on to something else. Take it and apply it to your business. Execute on what that analysis tells you.
That's really, it's perfect in what is needed. I'm curious if there are other acronyms that people have one understanding about, and then when you dig in, it's actually something quite different than what they thought.
Sure. Well, let's go straight for the capital T trigger word, which is DEI.
Shall we?
We should. Let's do it. Diversity, equity, inclusion, right? That one I've been very thoughtful about, when I use that term, what am I trying to express? And is it shorthand that is helping the conversation, or is it shorthand and it's like jargon that only I know? In real estate, commercial real estate, we love our jargon, right? We sort of build our own little club and, it's a...
Oh my gosh.
You're in the in-group if you know what all these different terms are.
Right.
Well, they're not always helpful if you actually are advocating or trying to engage with someone to get to a mutual result. So DEI is one of those where I say diversity, equity, inclusion, because we're solving for a broader viewpoint to get to a better solution. And we're also solving for a talent need. Lots of organizations need more humans to execute their business. And how do you access the widest, best labor pool? It's being very thoughtful about who is in your pipeline and who is in your current organization and how you're growing and maintaining them as talent providers to your team. And if you're excluding a whole portion of the population, is that the best thing for your business and your shareholders and your customers?
Give us, as an industry, a grade on how we're doing there, if you would feel comfortable saying.
Yeah, let's see. Gosh, it feels like, to use my middle school children's current experience, we're in the midterm of a grading period, right? Like, yes, I can give you like a snapshot of today, but it feels like it might not be fair to the industry.
Yeah.
I do think that we have definitely changed the way we talk about it for many reasons. Many cases, companies haven't changed their business. So if they used or embedded within their teams a way to grow their existing talent and attract more talent and retain their talent, if that lived under a DEI umbrella, diversity, equity, and inclusion umbrella, it probably doesn't live under that acronym umbrella anymore. That actual business strategy and tactics to grow their talent, maintain their talent, and retain their talent, that still exists because that drives their business. And that's a positive for them. So we're talking about it in a very different way. I don't know that talking about it differently is a positive. I have some part of me pragmatist, with my frontier mentality, like pragmatic approach. And then is that a good long-term solution? Like we can debate those two. But I would say that our industry was above C a year and a half, 2 years ago. Now we're in the C space, maybe falling. But if getting the right people on your team and getting access to talent is crucial to executing your business for your customers, you're either going to figure it out or you're not. And many have figured it out by being more thoughtful and intentional about bringing more diverse perspectives onto their team. And they're going to win, right? They're just going to win.
That's right.
Look back 10 years from now and we'll be like, oh yeah, they did it.
They're going to win. Yeah, it's true. So can we pause for just a moment, please?
Sure.
Thank you. So I'm not sure how much you've looked at Aedifico and kind of what we're about, but that conversation is part of the catalyst behind what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't done like a big launch because there's still work to do, frankly. And so I'm still talking about it, and we're still very actively working towards what we say it will be, right? But it is an invitation-only platform because this industry, it just requires it. And everyone who has requested an invitation so far would have been under that umbrella. And so it's an interesting, I'm not going to call it an experiment because the intent is to make it, what it will be, right? But anyway, it's a data point. It's something to observe and think about.
Yep. Which is a super valuable resource to organizations who are looking for experts and looking for a diverse, more resilient pool of resources. And we talk about this in a diverse supply chain, right? We need a resilient supply chain, but we need a diverse supply chain. We learned that in COVID very quickly and very difficult learning. Today, I regularly tell teams and people that if we're learning the same lesson about our supply chain and where our widgets and inputs come from because of how tariffs are impacting us, then we need to go back to 2020 and learn what we learned there and bring that learning to today, right? It means that we didn't complete the learning in the feedback loop and apply it to our business. Mm-hmm. Now, lots of organizations have, but a number are saying we didn't know that our product would do this route. Okay, well, you set up tools to learn that last time, meaning 2020. Let's figure out how to resurrect those tools or get that information from that tool, give access to those who are making decisions. Because maybe we just lost translation or the handoff wasn't great. But we learned this already. Let's figure it out and get back up the learning curve quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So wise. I love it. What are you seeing in AI and in PropTech right now? There's a shifting power dynamic or not yet? Or, what do you think?
So I'm going to date myself and remind people that before eBay was called eBay, it was called ebay.com. And because it had .com in it, it was worth more, right, on the stock market or somewhere. And we saw stadium naming rights include companies that had .com in them. Now that's so yesteryear.
Right?
I feel like AI is a similar trajectory of, because it's got a website, it's worth more. Today, because we add AI to it, like in another bullet point in our presentation, we're going to get a 20% valuation bump. We're going to raise, more money or something. That's the promise of AI. The actual execution and usage of an AI tool is much more difficult. And yes, we're in the messy, but it's still in the first phase of the messy middle. We're not even in the middle of it yet, I feel like, in real estate at least, and maybe across the whole way. We don't have good governance, right? We don't even have that yet. Let's get our good governance and then execute. And then we'll see how it actually performs.
That's right. Yeah. So for context, Aedifico is not AI yet, but it is very much on its way. For development phase 2 will start next week. But so I'm regularly meeting with people who are in tech. That's all they've ever done is tech. They have computer science degrees. And even they are saying, I can't tell what's noise and what's real. And these are developers, right? So I have to give them the business need and then be like, can the AI do this? Mm-hmm. Well, so it's almost like if you don't have a business need to start the process and it's just AI, then it's nothing. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it's like giving the developer the business need and then going, okay, where does the human have to be involved? Where does the AI come in and do the things, right? So that what we're creating is a toolkit for freelancers that allows them to leave their job and the AIs will do all of the business stuff that feels scary and unapproachable so that they can just do their work, right? That's our next phase. But it's true that I think it's not just real estate that's in phase 1 here.
That's fair. Right. Yeah. And phase 1, to your point, right? Like you are building the foundation to use AI tools. You first have to build the foundation, right? And you got to do that work. And then you'll be able to use the AI tools. And a lot of organizations are just talking about the end and not how they're getting to, not the work that you're doing to build the foundation to get to the tool. And your point about you need a business case, like explain that to the developer. That is the number one question that I ask a lot of PropTechs. And I'm fortunate to serve on advisory boards for PropTech organizations. And I'm always the person who's saying, what's the business case? What's the use case? What's the need? What's the problem that you're solving for clients? And then does your solution meet their needs? If you have a solution, but you don't know what the problem that it solves is yet, that could be an easy gap to solve because it exists, or it could be a really big gap to jump because you're not solving a problem that actually needs to be solved. You can call it AI, you can call it .com, you can call it whatever you want. Figure out the business need and then find the solution. And so the PropTech world is in that space, and now we've layered on but we can use AI to do that. Okay, so tell me more about that. How does it actually do that? And to your point, right, like understanding the business and how you can apply tools is a lot of the work that I do on the technology side, and now bring those same questions to the AI tools. I was signed up and took a class, AI and Commercial Real Estate, through Columbia because I wanted to learn. And I searched last year for online courses, reading, books, all these things to help me understand AI in the context of real estate. AI in the context of other places I could find that learning, but not the real estate piece. Because if you want to actually understand the problem, you need to be the business person, the user who needs the problem solved. This AI and real estate course was really helpful to
Jealous.
be thoughtful about what problem it is, and then what do you need to do to prepare your organization, your business, your project to use AI. And I highly recommend it. Wherever you get your learning from, go. This is a place where there's just more learning to be done, and you can be voracious in reading and learning about it.
I love that. That's the perfect little clip for when I post you in 3 weeks after I put that. It's perfect. Go learn about it. I love it so much. I am curious. Just tell me briefly about the books behind you, because you're obviously a wonderful learner, and so I'm curious what you're learning from those.
Sure. It's sort of like an evolution of the last 5 years of reading and things. Like, this is healthy buildings, right? So this was, how do we build a space to support the humans who are in that space? And this was a huge issue, as you know, during COVID, about how our buildings function to support health, specifically from an airflow perspective, but also from a daylight and all these other things. So that one was super helpful. And then I'm a French speaker, so French verbs is up there. Just makes me happy.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Some books, like the top one, Building Optimism by Kobe Lefkowitz. We were colleagues at Wall Street, and he wrote a book about building housing, accessible housing, so that one makes me happy. So, yes, thank you for asking about the books.
Yeah. Thanks for filling us in. I'm so often the things that I do, I'm constantly, affirmed, I guess, or even though it's not necessarily bringing in dollars, the fact that I'm building this is like the most important thing to me. And then the people that I'm working with, obviously, so important too. But yeah, the great. I'd love to read those. Okay, so what does resilience really mean? And how do we design portfolios that genuinely reflect resilience? I love that word for it.
Okay, good. So resilience for me is like the ability to take on new information, adapt, and survive, or even thrive, right? So I use an example a lot of times for when I was running an office portfolio, and we had Class A, Class B, downtown, suburban, and we were updating our amenity space within that, because we were making a leasing push, raising market rates. How are we going to do that? All these things. And so when we build an amenity space, which is a lounge or some sort of space that can be a conference room or a boardroom or a lounge or meeting space, my number one rule was few walls as possible. Because in 5 years, how we use the space will probably change. People will access it, use it, ask it for it to be something different setup. And if we build 4 different rooms right next to each other, and we decide that we need a bigger lounge space, because that's what tenants want in year 5, now we have to tear down walls, rearrange furniture. It's an expensive adjustment. And so how about if we use furniture to create space between these things? If you don't need it for a board meeting or a conference room where there needs to be some control of sound and privacy, then let's use collaboration space and meeting space and lounge space and arrange it by furniture, right? And I'm not the designer who's going to do this. I'm not the person who's going to say this is the best furniture for this application.
Sure.
I'm the person who is presented those things and says, yes, that will solve the problem and allow us to adjust, learn from how people use the space and adjust in the next few years. Yeah. So that was always my fewer walls. Like, don't bring me a bunch of walls to start with. We can add walls later if we need to, but not right now.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how I understand resiliency, is you've planned for change. Yes. And when the change happens, you can adjust with it and get a successful outcome. And we see that in how we build buildings today, planning for future different uses. You bounce back from something. If it's a exogenous, like a third party, not in your control event, or something that happens with your tenant, right? You're in a better position. And on the investment and return side, what this means is, like when I would talk to investors at ASB, I was fortunate to serve on the client relations and marketing team, where we would go and update our existing investors on how their investment in our fund is doing, talk about if they wanted to make more, allocate more dollars to us, and then talk to new investors. And we One of our investment strategies we clearly outlined is we're going to invest in assets and markets where we can achieve the upside as the market grows and improves because we're building product that meets that. And when there's a downturn, because there'll always be a downturn, it's a cyclical business, we stay stable or lose less. It means and then we can recover quickly as the recovery happens. So that's how you build very specific functions and lenses that you evaluate decisions through to get to that ability to achieve a resilient response.
Good. I was going to say during the last conversation just about real estate, like I wanted to go to, are you familiar with Cornet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Cornet is doing an event at OpenAI today. And I signed up for it, and it's in San Francisco, right? And so I signed up for it, and then I got it, and they said it's closed, no more tickets. Then yesterday I got my ticket. And so I was so sad. I would have loved to have gone and, seen their space. And so I wanted you to be in the jealousy with me.
Yeah.
That we can't go.
No.
Yeah.
The next one, right? Next one.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Okay. So let's see. What role do you think diverse teams and inclusive leadership play in accelerating innovation and adapting? Well, you kind of already covered that. So I think it's a good time to just ask, what's your dream?
I mean, I really like this question. It's super hard. Like I've been thinking about it. So I'll come at it from what motivates me. So what motivates me is I'm curious.
Yeah.
So always looking to learn new things, try new things. What that means to some of my colleagues maybe is I act like I'm easily bored. If it's the same thing over and over again, then I got to go find a problem to solve. Or I don't swim in my own lane. I was just talking to a client today about if you have team members who swim in their own lane, recognize that. If you have others who don't, who want to be in other lanes and they're effective, then that's a valuable thing to know about that team member. So I'm driven by curiosity. I'm driven by results, achieving results. And I'm also driven by doing it for the right outcome, the right reasons, getting there the right way and the right outcome. So when I think about those three drivers, I think about what do people want to say about, what will people say about me? Like if I look back on what I've accomplished, it's that I was always there as a resource to help drive things forward, push things forward for the industry and for, individual humans, right? Both things. That's important to me. Like I was part of the positive solution and momentum, and that they could rely on me to be honest about what the challenges and the results will be and say, okay, if we change this could help more people or get a better result or improve this. Speaking up, right? To get the right way to right there. My dream is to be recognized as someone who helped build a better way, find a better way, and that our journey was a positive, respectful journey.
And so you're living it. You're truly living it, right?
Every day you got to decide, get up and decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I love that because it's present. It's not like some future thing like that. I think so often it's like we're grasping for that thing, and when I accomplish this, then I'll have been successful. But it's more of a way to live, and I love that so much.
I do have my milestones of like when I hit this, right? I was motivated when I was in my 20s to be a vice president by the time I turned 30. That was something in what I learned from around me at different shops. I think I was 31 when I hit it, right? Okay, right? I'll take that. Did that change the rest of my life and trajectory? No. But was I motivated to achieve that because I wanted to get the title because the title mattered? No, in hindsight, I was motivated because that meant that I had accountability and responsibility and the autonomy and the team to go do great things. Right? And we valued people who did great things in real estate with the title. So I had to learn that that's what I was chasing, less of, I could just go get this title somewhere else.
Sure. 100%. Yes. And having the wisdom to know the difference is a big deal. I'm not sure that most people, as a recruiter, I can tell you that most people are chasing the title. And maybe not so much anymore. It's been quite a while since I've been, a boots on the ground recruiter. So perhaps things have changed. In fact, I know they have, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Anything else that you'd like to share with the audience about you and what you're up to?
Well, I would love to ask you that question, like, what's your dream? At the end of a journey or a chapter, what do you want to look back and say, okay, this was awesome, I did this?
Yeah. It really is to fundamentally change the industry such that it is no longer organized by company, but organized with individuals. Yeah, that's the big dream. Because I see it clear as day how it naturally makes things more equitable, and not just that, but it just makes more sense the way that we do projects to staff projects, not companies. So I want to see that come to fruition, and then all the learning that takes place along the way, especially about leading a team. And I already have so many lessons learned. I'm not feeling regretful, but I do have, some things that I'll do different next time already, and we're about 18 months in. So yeah, that's it. I want to see that. And then, I have all these other like wonderful projects that I'm doing. I get up at 5 a.m. and I love fashion. So like I'm kind of obsessed with that. But I wouldn't say that I feel the same way as you in terms of I'm living it yet, because I definitely feel like there's a goal for Aedifico and kind of like a big step in terms of funding that I'm seeking out. And so I think when that happens, then I can start like living the day, living it. So Thank you for asking.
Well, I would challenge you by saying you are living it because you are doing it, right? You're building it. Right? And you need that foundation. You need to build something before you can get there. So I'm excited for what you're building.
Thank you. That means a lot. We should talk in the future about you being a part of this in some way. I would love to continue the conversation, certainly. Anyway, Mandy Wedin, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm excited to continue the conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mandy. I love that we have a powerhouse Mandy.
Yes, the Mandys.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, we'll take good care. We'll see you
too.
soon. All right.
Bye-bye.